There's a restlessness that lives inside you. It whispers at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come. It tugs at your chest during conversations that used to feel natural, but now feel forced. It shows up in moments when you're surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone. You know this feeling, that gnawing sense that something is fundamentally wrong, but you can't quite name it. You look around at your life, the same apartment, the same job, the same circle of friends, the same weekend routine, and everything appears normal from the outside. Nothing catastrophic has happened. No dramatic breakup, no major loss, no life-altering crisis, yet somehow nothing feels right anymore. It's like wearing clothes that used to fit perfectly, but now feel too tight in all the wrong places. Most people will tell you to push through it. They'll say it's just a phase, that you're being ungrateful, that you should appreciate what you have. But what if I told you that this uncomfortable feeling isn't a problem to be solved? What if it's actually a signal? A message from the deepest part of yourself trying to tell you something crucial about who you're becoming. The truth is, you're not broken. You're not having a quarter-life crisis or a midlife meltdown. You're not depressed or lost or confused, even though it might feel that way. What you're experiencing is something far more profound and far more beautiful than anyone has bothered to explain to you. You're outgrowing your old life. Think about it for a moment. When a snake sheds its skin, the process isn't comfortable. The old skin becomes tight, restrictive, suffocating. It no longer serves the creature that's growing beneath it. And for a while before the shedding is complete, the snake exists in this uncomfortable in-between space where the old skin is too small, but the new skin isn't quite ready. That's exactly where you are right now. You've evolved beyond the person who once found satisfaction in your current circumstances, but you haven't yet stepped fully into who you're becoming. And that liminal space, that threshold between versions of yourself, feels like nothing fits anymore because, quite literally, nothing does. Your old life was designed for an older version of you. The conversations, the goals, the relationships, the routines, they were all perfectly calibrated for someone you used to be. But here's what no one tells you about personal growth. It's not just about adding new skills or new experiences to your existing life. Real growth often requires letting go of entire identities, entire ways of being, entire relationships and environments that once felt like home. It's about becoming someone who can no longer pretend to care about things that used to matter to you. Someone who can no longer fake enthusiasm for conversations that feel shallow. Someone who can no longer ignore the pull towards something deeper, more authentic, more aligned with who you're becoming. This is why it feels so isolating. The people around you haven't necessarily changed, but your capacity to connect with them on the same level has shifted. You've developed new depths, new awareness, new standards for what feels meaningful. And suddenly, surface-level interactions that used to be enough now leave you feeling empty. You find yourself in the middle of social gatherings, wondering why everyone seems satisfied with conversations that barely scratch the surface of what it means to be human. Your tolerance for mediocrity has evaporated. Things that used to be good enough, comfortable enough, acceptable enough, now feel like settling. Not because you've become arrogant or entitled, but because you've tasted something more authentic, more alive, more true to who you are at your core. And once you've experienced that level of alignment, everything else feels like a compromise. The career that once felt stable now feels like a cage. The relationship that once felt secure now feels like you're both going through the motions. The friendships that once felt effortless now require you to dim parts of yourself just to maintain them. The hobbies that once brought joy now feel like you're trying to force interest in things that no longer resonate. This isn't ingratitude. This isn't being difficult or picky or impossible to please. This is what happens when your soul starts demanding more from life. When the part of you that's been quietly growing in the background finally gets loud enough to be heard. When you can no longer ignore the gap between who you are and how you're living. And here's the thing that makes this process even more confusing. Society has trained us to believe that if we're not happy with our circumstances, we should either change them immediately or learn to be grateful for what we have. But outgrowing your life isn't something you can rush, and it's not something you should suppress with forced gratitude. It's a natural, necessary process that requires patience, trust, and the willingness to sit in discomfort while something new emerges. You can't force a butterfly out of its cocoon without damaging it. The transformation has its own timeline, its own rhythm, and right now you're in the cocoon phase. Everything feels dark and constrictive because you're in the process of dissolving the old form so the new one can take shape. The caterpillar doesn't just sprout wings, it has to completely break down, become something unrecognizable, before it can reorganize into something entirely different. That's what's happening to you. You're not falling apart, you're breaking down so you can break through. You're not losing yourself. You're shedding the layers of who you thought you had to be so you can discover who you actually are. You're not making mistakes by questioning everything. You're finally brave enough to admit that the life you built for an earlier version of yourself no longer serves the person you've become. But this realization brings its own set of challenges, because once you see the gap, once you feel the misalignment, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending that everything is fine when it's not. You can't force yourself back into a life that's too small for who you're becoming. And that means you have to make some difficult decisions about what stays and what goes as you step into this new version of yourself. The question isn't whether you should trust this feeling. The question is what you're going to do with it, because this restlessness, this sense that nothing fits anymore, it's not a problem to be solved. It's an invitation to be answered. The invitation is asking you to honor what's trying to emerge from within you, to stop forcing yourself to fit into spaces that have become too small, to stop apologizing for outgrowing people, places, and patterns that once felt like home, but now feel like prisons. This doesn't mean you have to burn everything down overnight. It doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow or end all your relationships by Friday. But it does mean you need to start listening to what your soul is trying to tell you. It means creating space for the person you're becoming to breathe, to explore, to experiment with new ways of being. Maybe that looks like having deeper conversations, even if they make people uncomfortable. Maybe it means saying no to invitations that drain your energy so you can say yes to experiences that light you up. Maybe it means spending time alone, not because you're antisocial, but because you need space to hear your own voice without the noise of everyone else's expectations. The people who are meant to grow with you will understand this transformation. They'll sense the shift in your energy and either rise to meet you there or naturally drift away. And the ones who resist your growth, who try to keep you small, who make you feel guilty for changing, they're showing you exactly why this evolution is necessary. Your old life served a purpose. It got you to where you are now. It taught you lessons, gave you experiences, helped you understand what you value and what you don't. But holding on to something beyond its expiration date isn't loyalty. It's fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of disappointing others, fear of discovering that you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. The truth is, you've been preparing for this moment your entire life. Every book that changed your perspective, every conversation that opened your mind, every quiet moment when you felt that spark of something more, it was all leading you here, to this recognition that you're ready for the next chapter, even if you don't know what it looks like yet. And that's okay. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a master plan or a perfect strategy. You just need to trust that the same intelligence that grew you from a child into who you are today knows how to guide you from who you are now into who you're meant to become. The restlessness you feel isn't your enemy. It's your internal GPS recalibrating, pointing you toward true north. It's your soul's way of saying, we've learned what we needed to learn here. We've grown what we needed to grow. Now it's time to take everything we've discovered and plant it in new soil. This process requires courage. The courage to disappoint people who prefer the old version of you. The courage to walk away from situations that look good on paper but feel wrong in your body. The courage to trust your inner knowing even when the world around you thinks you're making a mistake. But here's what happens when you finally honor this calling. When you stop fighting the current and start swimming with it. When you stop trying to force yourself back into a life that no longer fits and start creating space for what wants to emerge. Everything begins to flow differently. The right opportunities start appearing. The right people start showing up. The right circumstances start aligning. Not because you're forcing them, but because you're finally vibrating at the frequency of who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. You start waking up with energy instead of dread. You start having conversations that feed your soul instead of drain it. You start making choices from excitement instead of obligation. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. And yes, there will be moments of doubt. Moments when you wonder if you made the right choice. Moments when the old life seems easier, safer, more predictable. But then you'll remember how it felt to live in that constant state of misalignment. How exhausting it was to pretend that everything was fine when your soul was screaming for change. You'll remember that the discomfort you're feeling now is the discomfort of growth, not the discomfort of stagnation. And there's a profound difference between the two. One leads somewhere beautiful, the other leads nowhere at all. So if you're reading this and nodding along, if something inside you is saying, yes, this is exactly what I needed to hear, then know this. The feeling that nothing fits anymore isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that everything is finally going right. You're not broken. You're breaking open. You're not lost. You're finding yourself. You're not making a mistake by questioning everything. You're finally brave enough to listen to the wisdom that's been whispering inside you all along. Trust the process, trust the timing, trust yourself, because the life that's waiting on the other side of this transformation is more beautiful than anything you could force or plan or control. It's the life you came here to live, and it's time to step into it fully, completely, unapologetically. The old skin has served its purpose, now let it fall away. What emerges will be worth every moment of discomfort you're feeling right now.